When I got promoted, my neighbor filed a fake complaint that cost me $3,800 and got me demoted. She smirked. Just keeping the community. I had audio of her bragging about it at a barbecue, and I sent that recording to every city official. I was standing in my kitchen in Tempe, Arizona, staring at the bright orange envelope slapped onto my front door like it was some kind of warning label on a toxic product. Civil penalty, $3,800. My hands were shaking so hard I had to brace myself on the counter. I'd barely slept the night before because my boss had called me at 6 a.m. saying, "We need to talk. Today." I already knew what that meant. The city had sent her a formal notice claiming I'd been running a disruptive, unlicensed business out of my home, which was insane. All I did was get promoted to project coordinator and start working hybrid. I wasn't welding car parts in the yard. I wasn't running a daycare. I wasn't hosting late-night poker tournaments. I was literally just typing emails and managing schedules at my small kitchen table. But apparently, that was enough for my neighbor, Linda. I didn't even have to guess it was her. She was already waiting outside that morning, arms crossed, wearing that fake, friendly suburban watchdog smile she practiced like she'd been elected to it. "Saw the city came by," she said, her voice syrupy and smug. "Some people don't realize our neighborhood has standards, just keeping the community safe." I swear something in me twisted when she said that, like a tiny wire snapped. Because I'd worked so damn hard for that promotion. I'd fought through layoffs, budget cuts, impossible deadlines. Getting promoted felt like finally getting my head above water after years of treading. And now, thanks to this woman who lived literally 12 feet away from me, my boss was suddenly concerned about the kind of attention I might attract. Concerned enough to demote me. Not fire me, just push me back exactly where I was before. Same pay. Same workload. Same title I'd spent the last 2 years clawing my way out of. I stood there in my kitchen replaying that meeting, hearing my boss's rehearsed guilt-softened tone. "It's just until we sort this out." Meaning, Linda already won. My stomach burned with this mix of humiliation and rage. I kept seeing her smug face as she said that line, just keeping the community safe, like she was the sheriff of a town nobody asked her to run. And worst of all, she thought she had gotten away with it. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that 2 weeks before all this, at a neighborhood barbecue, she'd gotten drunk on somebody's cheap sangria and started bragging. Loudly, bragging about how she'd tested the system before by filing noise complaints to keep renters on their toes. Bragging about how she knew which departments responded fastest. Bragging that she had a plan to keep the neighborhood from turning into a free-for-all. She said all of that right next to me. And the whole time, my phone was recording in my pocket because I'd been interviewing someone earlier for a volunteer project and forgot to stop the recording. I didn't think anything of it back then. But now that audio felt like a loaded weapon, because in it, she didn't just talk about her past successes. She talked about her current target. She talked about me. Not by name, no, she wasn't that sloppy, but by description. The woman on the corner who suddenly started working from home and having packages delivered. The one who thinks rules don't apply if she's quiet about it. The one I'm keeping an eye on. And I had every single word. So when I finally sat down at my laptop, shaking but determined, I forwarded that audio file too. Before all this mess, before fines and demotions and city inspectors showing up like I was running some underground casino, my life in Tempe was normal. Quiet, even. I moved into this neighborhood 3 years ago because it felt safe and steady. The kind of place where people waved when they drove by and argued about trash pickup on Facebook like it was a national emergency. And honestly, for most of that time, I kept to myself. I work in operations for a regional logistics company. Nothing glamorous. Nothing dramatic. Just spreadsheets, timelines, vendor calls, and the occasional crisis that usually boiled down to someone forgetting to CC the right manager. The point is, I wasn't exactly living the kind of life that attracted drama. I paid my bills. I went for walks. I bought the same groceries every week. I even brought in my neighbor's packages when it rained. My only real mistake was trying too hard to be friendly with people who didn't deserve it. Linda moved in a year after I did. She introduced herself by knocking on my door and handing me a printed sheet of community guidelines that she swore the HOA used to enforce before people got lazy. We don't even have an HOA. The neighborhood voted against 1 year ago, but she decided to run her own unofficial version, complete with highlight markers and smiley face bullet points. She talked like she was doing everyone a favor, like she'd been personally chosen to maintain the character of the neighborhood. I shrugged it off at first. Every street has its self-appointed rule keeper. It didn't bother me because she never bothered me, not directly. But over time, I started noticing the pattern. Anytime someone parked slightly crooked, she'd film it. Anytime someone left a broken planter or a bag of yard waste on the curb, she'd report it. Anytime a new family moved in and didn't immediately mow their lawn, she'd knock on their door with her laminated guidelines. She wasn't trying to protect the community. She was trying to control it. Still, even then, she left me alone. I think she liked pretending we were allies. Like I'd been here longer and that somehow gave me seniority in her little obsession with order. Then I got promoted, and I swear the shift in her was instant. Suddenly she'd make comments like, "Working from home again?" In this tone that wasn't really a question. Or, "That must be nice, getting packages every day." Like I was operating a drug lab instead of ordering office supplies and the occasional pair of shoes. She once asked me outright if the company I worked for knew I was doing so much work from home. I reminded her hybrid schedules were normal. She just smiled and said, "Some people stretch the rules until they snap." I laughed it off, but something in her tone stuck with me, this weird mix of envy and accusation. Looking back, I think the promotion triggered something ugly in her. Like my life was supposed to stay small so hers didn't feel small by comparison. Then came the barbecue. A simple neighborhood get-together. Burgers, cheap drinks, folding tables. I wasn't even planning to stay long. But that's when I overheard her, glassy-eyed, leaning in close to some guy I didn't know, bragging about keeping the block clean and how she was building a case against someone who thought remote work was a free pass. I remember feeling confused. I didn't put it together until she said the part about the woman on the corner and laughed. That laugh stuck with me, and it became a lot more important than I ever expected. Because that night wasn't just some casual gossip from a bitter neighbor, it was the start of something much worse. And I had no idea how far she was willing to go. Things didn't blow up all at once. It was a slow, creeping escalation, the kind that worms its way into your routines until suddenly your life is full of problems that didn't exist 2 months earlier. It started small. A city truck idling outside my house for 20 minutes. A code compliance officer leaving a yellow notice about home-based business regulations. A letter asking if I needed to register for a commercial permit. All of it vague, annoying, but nothing that sounded dangerous. I figured it was a mix-up. Bureaucracy gets weird sometimes, especially in a city as spread out as Tempe. I even called the number on one of the notices. The guy on the phone sounded confused as hell and said it might be part of a neighborhood inquiry, whatever that meant. I didn't connect any dots, not at first, but then I started noticing little things around my house. Stuff that made me feel like someone was watching me closer than anyone should. Once, I came home and found a city employee quietly taking photos of the side of my house. Another day, someone had placed a printed packet of illegal home business examples on my doormat, no note, no explanation. I asked the neighbors if anything weird was happening to them. Everyone said no. Everyone except Linda, who gave me this tight-lipped smile and said, "Sometimes we attract attention without realizing it." That line made my stomach drop, but I still didn't want to believe she was behind it. I thought she was annoying, sure, but vengeful, strategic, willing to weaponize the city government. It felt too extreme, but everything escalated in 1 week. First came the official noise complaint. Then came the unpermitted activity investigation. Then the inspector visit. 3 strangers in city shirts knocked on my door at 8:30 a.m. asking to verify reports of commercial operations. I showed them everything, my laptop, my emails, my dead houseplant. They left looking embarrassed, but that didn't stop the next letter, or the $3,800 fine. It hit like a sucker punch. I stared at the number again and again, hoping I misread it. I called to appeal, only to be told the complaint wasn't just noise. It was multiple reports of suspicious activity. Multiple reports, not one. And when my boss got that same notice forwarded to her, she freaked. She called me into her office with that HR is listening through the phone line voice. She said the company couldn't risk negative attention or misunderstandings during an expansion. So just like that, the promotion I'd worked for evaporated. I walked out of her office feeling like someone had kicked me in the chest. It wasn't until later, after the demotion, after the panic, after the humiliation, that the reality sank in. Someone had created this mess on purpose, and someone knew exactly what to say to get the city to act quickly. I kept replaying that barbecue conversation in my head. The way she giggled when she mentioned knowing who to contact. The way she bragged about getting results fast when you use the right wording. And the worst part, it worked. My nights became restless. I'd lie awake hearing phantom knocks, thinking about inspectors showing up again. I'd avoid my front windows because I didn't want to risk catching her watching me from her driveway like she sometimes did. I wasn't just angry, I was scared. And underneath that fear was something else, a cold, nauseating suspicion that she wasn't done. Because the fine, the demotion, those didn't feel like the end of her plan. They felt like the opening act. But she didn't know something had shifted in me too. She didn't know I'd realized how dangerous she actually was. And she definitely didn't know about the audio, not yet. The recording she'd forgotten she ever said. The one that would break everything open and reveal what she'd been plotting all along. I didn't plan on confronting anyone. Honestly, at that point, I just wanted my life back. The promotion, the peace, the ability to open my blinds without feeling like I was being evaluated. But the universe shoved the truth right in my face in a way I couldn't ignore. It happened on a Tuesday night. I was taking out the trash, trying to keep my head down, when I heard voices coming from Linda's backyard. Her patio backs up almost directly to mine, separated by a narrow strip of gravel, and a fence that might as well have been made of cardboard with how much sound it let through. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the tone, that loud, performative confidence, was unmistakable. It was the same tone she'd used at the barbecue when she was drunk and bragging. This time she wasn't drunk. This time she was proud. Told them she was using her house as a drop site, she said, laughing. They jump at the word distribution. You just have to make it sound official. I froze with the trash bag in my hand. A man's voice, someone I'd never heard before, asked, "A drop site for what?" There was a loud clunk, like she'd set down a drink on the patio table. Doesn't matter, they don't check. They hear distribution and think she's running some under-the-table operation. That's how you get the city to act. I've done it before. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. She had not only lied, she'd fabricated the entire thing and used specific language she knew would trigger an investigation. And she wasn't just talking about me like a nuisance. She was talking about me like a project. The guy whistled. "Damn, Linda, and you're not worried she'll figure it out. Please," her voice sharpened. "She's clueless. She thinks the city just stumbled onto her house by accident. I'm not letting this neighborhood turn into one of those hybrid worker free-for-alls. If we don't enforce standards, nobody will." Hybrid worker free-for-alls. She said it like I was a public health threat. Then she added, almost casually, "And honestly, it's good timing. Can't have her career climbing while she turns this block into her personal office. A little setback builds character." That line hit me so hard I had to grab the side of my recycling bin. She knew about the demotion. She knew, and she liked it. The only way she could have known was if someone told her, or if she'd been the one who forwarded the city's notice to my employer. I didn't want to believe it, but everything clicked. Every weird, invasive step of the investigation. Every perfectly timed escalation. She hadn't just filed a complaint, she'd built a whole damn case out of thin air. And then I heard one more thing, the thing that made my entire body go cold. The man asked, "Aren't you worried she might, I don't know, retaliate?" Linda snorted. "She won't even know where the hit came from. That's the beauty of it." That was when I realized something I hadn't let myself think until that moment. She didn't do this because she thought I was loud. She didn't do this because of some community rule. She did this because she didn't want me to succeed. She had targeted me, calmly, deliberately, because my promotion bothered her. And she never expected me to hear any of this. But as I stood there in the dark, trash bag clenched in my fist, something twisted inside me. Something sharper than fear and deeper than anger. Because she was wrong. I did know where the hit came from now. And I had the one thing that could ruin her back. the recording from the barbecue that she had no idea existed. But that wasn't even the biggest twist, not by a long shot. The real shock came 2 days later, when I learned what she'd been planning next. 2 days after hearing Linda basically confess to sabotaging my entire life, I found out something that pushed everything from, I need to stand up for myself, to, I need to stop this woman before she destroys someone else. I was heading to my car early in the morning when I saw a city compliance truck roll slowly down our street again. I felt that familiar jolt of nerves, that mix of helplessness and anger. But this time, the truck didn't stop in front of my house. It stopped in front of my neighbor across the street, Sandra. Sandra's a single mom with 2 little boys. Kindest woman on this block. Soft-spoken. Works 2 jobs and still finds time to keep the neatest lawn in the whole neighborhood. The kind of mom who packs extra snacks in case somebody else's kid forgot theirs. Seeing an inspector walk toward her door made me feel sick. I crossed the street as casually as I could and asked the inspector if everything was okay. He didn't tell me details, but he said, "We received multiple reports." My stomach flipped. Multiple reports. The same phrase they used with me. Later that afternoon, I saw Sandra standing in her driveway looking stressed, clutching a folded letter in her hand. Her kids were chasing each other around the minivan, laughing like everything was normal. I walked over. She showed me the letter, some nonsense about excessive noise during non-approved hours. She kept repeating, "I don't understand, they're kids, they're just kids." While she was talking, I glanced across the street. Linda was standing by her front window, watching and smiling. That was the moment I knew she wasn't just targeting me. She was expanding her little crusade. She was picking off people she didn't approve of one by one. Maybe she thought it made her powerful. Maybe she truly believed she was in charge of our block. Either way, I couldn't let it happen. Not again. That night, I sat at my laptop with the recording queued up. I put on headphones and listened to every second. The bragging, the laughter, the explicit targeting, the way she described creating pressure points until people crack. She sounded proud of ruining people's actual lives. I collected everything, the notices I'd received, screenshots of the emails sent to my employer, the timestamps of the inspector visits, even photos of her standing at her window watching city trucks pull up. It all painted a picture, and it wasn't a complicated one. She'd used government services as weapons. But I knew just exposing her wasn't enough. The city is slow, bureaucratic, careful. And if she found out I was coming for her, she'd twist it into some martyr story. I'm just a concerned neighbor. I'm being harassed for caring. I needed to hit her in a way she couldn't spin. I needed to send the recording to someone who would actually listen, someone she couldn't manipulate. And I had options. The city ombudsman, the state ethics hotline, the local news station that loves neighborhood injustice stories. Even her employer, because she works for a healthcare network with strict ethics rules about harassment and false reporting. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about stopping her. It was about making sure she could never do this again, not to Sandra, not to anyone, so I built a plan. Step 1, compile every piece of evidence in a cloud folder. Step 2, draft a clear, chronological report tying her actions together. Step 3, prepare the audio file with timestamps and a transcript. Step 4, send it not just to one place, but to several at the same time, ensuring it couldn't be buried. Step 5, set up a timer so that even if she confronted me or tried to escalate anything else, the evidence would auto-send. By midnight, everything was sorted. One click away. But something happened right before I sent it. Something that flipped the entire situation upside down and revealed a second twist I never could have predicted. I got a message from someone I never expected to hear from. And suddenly, everything Linda had done made a different kind of terrifying sense. I was sitting at my desk, staring at the send button, when my phone buzzed with a notification. At first, I ignored it. I was too deep in the adrenaline of my plan, and I didn't want anything to break my focus. Then it buzzed again. And again. 3 messages, same sender. "Hi, this is going to sound strange, but we need to talk about Linda." The name attached to the messages made my stomach tighten. It was her ex-husband. Mark. I'd never spoken to him in my life. I only knew he existed because she'd once loudly complained on Nextdoor about deadbeat men who can't handle strong women. He didn't live in the neighborhood anymore. She told everyone he moved far, far away to start over. He lived 15 minutes away in Mesa. I opened the messages. Mark, I know you don't know me, but I promise I'm not trying to cause trouble. I got your number from Sandra. She said something weird is going on with the city and that you might need context. Please call me. My heart started pounding. How would he know anything about what was happening? And why would he reach out now after all this time? I hesitated, but curiosity won. I called. He picked up on the first ring. Thank you for calling, he said, sounding breathless, like he'd been pacing. Listen, I know this is sudden, but I need to tell you something before things get worse over there. That choice of words, before things get worse, made my throat tighten. What do you mean? I asked. He exhaled shakily. Linda didn't change after we divorced. If anything, she doubled down. She gets obsessed with things, people, rules, control. She always finds some target to fixate on. And when she feels like her life is slipping, she escalates. Badly. I gripped the edge of my desk. What does this have to do with me? I asked. He was quiet for a second, then said something that sent a chill down my spine. She's been calling me for months. Not because she misses me, she never misses anyone. She calls when she wants information. And she asked me about you. My skin prickled. Why would she ask you about me? Because she was trying to find out if your company has any history of complaints or HR issues she could leverage. Her word, not mine. She said you were a risk to the neighborhood dynamic, and she needed to reinforce boundaries before things got out of hand. I felt sick. It sounded exactly like something she'd say, but that wasn't the twist. The twist was what he told me next. Look, he continued, voice tightening, I didn't want to get involved. I've spent years trying to keep my distance. But yesterday she called again, and this time she said something that scared me. He paused, like he was deciding whether to say it at all. She said she wasn't done with you yet. She said the city stuff was just phase 1, and that she had a friend in municipal enforcement who owed her a favor. Someone who could move cases to the top of the list. A cold wave washed over me. Do you know who? I asked. Yes, and the name he said made everything inside me drop, because I recognized it immediately. It was the same city inspector who'd shown up at my house first, the one who'd apologized under his breath. The one who'd looked uncomfortable, like he knew something was off but was stuck doing his job anyway. And suddenly, everything clicked. The speed of the complaints, the escalations, the multiple reports. The way the inspections kept coming back despite no evidence. She wasn't just manipulating the system. She had someone inside helping her. A corrupt city contact she bragged about but never named. And now she was planning phase 2. I didn't want to imagine what that meant. More fines, forced inspections, another hit to my job. She wanted to break me, completely. And the worst part. Mark said something else right before we hung up, something that made my heart race with a different kind of fear. She didn't pick you at random, he said softly. Linda chooses people who remind her of someone. Someone she hates. I didn't understand at first, then he told me who, and why. And suddenly, this wasn't just petty neighbor drama. This was psychological, personal, targeted, and the reason behind it was darker and more twisted than anything I had imagined. When Mark told me why Linda had fixated on me, specifically me, it didn't make sense at first. It sounded too personal, too unhinged, too deep-rooted to have anything to do with remote work or neighborhood rules or city complaints. But the more he explained, the colder I felt. It was like someone slowly turned off the warmth in the room until the air was sharp and metallic. It's about her sister, he said. Her older sister, Karen. I don't know her, I said. You don't have to, you look like her. You sound like her. You even work in the same field she used to. My skin prickled in a way I've never felt before, like something crawling under my ribs. Mark continued, they had a bad relationship, really bad. Her sister got promoted over her at their old job years ago. Linda thought it was favoritism, thought she should have been chosen. It obsessed her for years. So, I asked, voice flat, but my chest was pounding. He took a breath. She believes her sister ruined her life. She said it all the time, that Karen cut her off at the knees. that she stole opportunities from her, that she became the reason Linda never advanced in her career. I swallowed hard. But what does that have to do with me? You didn't do anything, he said, voice soft. You just remind her of the person she hates most. She doesn't care about truth. She cares about a story she's built in her head. I leaned back in my chair, feeling lightheaded. She told me last year, he went on, that she'd stopped waiting for karma to handle people like her sister. She said she finally understood that some people need to be, he hesitated, managed proactively. Managed proactively. The exact phrase Linda used at the barbecue. My stomach twisted tight. She picks people who mirror her sister, he said. Same vibe, same drive, same way of carrying themselves. She watches for them. And when she finds someone who fits the mold, he let the sentence hang. She tries to destroy them, I whispered. She tries to control them, he corrected. And if she can't control them, she breaks them. For a long moment, I didn't say anything. I just let the truth settle, heavy and suffocating. This wasn't about rules. This wasn't about noise. This wasn't about the neighborhood. This was personal to her, even if I had never spoken more than 10 sentences to her. She had projected her sister's life, her envy, her humiliation, her bitterness, all of it onto me. And the worst part. She always escalates, Mark said quietly. When you don't react the way she expects, she pushes harder. That's why I called you. She's gearing up for something, I don't know what, but I know her. She won't stop until you're either broken or gone. A sickening light clicked on in the back of my mind. All the random questions she'd asked, all the observations she'd made, all the weird little comments she slipped into conversations. She'd been studying me, not as a neighbor, not as a person, but as a target. She didn't want me quiet. She wanted me small. She wanted me sidelined. She wanted me to fail so she could feel like someone finally paid for what her sister did to her decades ago. And now that she'd already damaged my career, she was ready for whatever phase 2 meant. I felt something inside me harden. Something cold and sharp, not fear, not panic, but resolve. If she wanted to see me as her sister's ghost. Fine, but she was about to learn something her twisted brain never accounted for. Her sister didn't get to fight back. I would. And I was going to make sure Linda never had the power to hurt another person again. After I hung up with Mark, I just sat there in the dim light of my living room, staring at the wall. Everything finally made sense, the obsession, the targeting, the escalation. It wasn't about me. It was about the ghost of a woman I had never met. And that realization didn't make me feel safer. It made everything feel more dangerous. Because people like Linda don't stop. Not until something or someone stops them. So I stopped playing defense. I finalized my plan. I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to pull the entire rotten structure she'd built down on top of her. Every dishonest complaint, every manipulative trick, every corrupt connection she'd used to hurt other people. No more warning shots. No more hoping she'd get bored and move on. I wanted consequences that would follow her for years. I collected everything and hit send, not to one place but to 7. City of Tempe Ombudsman, Internal Affairs for Municipal Code Enforcement, the local ABC Investigative Reporting Team, her employer's HR Compliance Department, the Arizona Attorney General's Public Integrity Unit, a state hotline for abuse of government resources, and, as a backup, a pre-scheduled auto-send to a private attorney. I'd consulted every file included the barbecue audio, a transcript, timestamps, screenshots of the notices, my demotion email, photos, and a detailed timeline of every interaction with Linda. I organized it so clearly that anyone reading it would feel like they were following the plot of a crime documentary. And then, I sent a separated, anonymized tip naming the inspector she was connected to. I didn't need to accuse him, I just showed the pattern. It spoke for itself. The ABC reporter emailed me back in 9 minutes. "Can we talk? This is exactly the type of case we investigate." I sent the audio. I sent the documents. I told her everything. She said, "We'll be on your street tomorrow." The next morning, 2 city enforcement vehicles pulled up, but they didn't stop at my house. They stopped at hers. I watched from my window as 2 officials knocked on her door. She answered with that same smug, faux-sweet smile she used on everyone. until they asked her to step outside. Her face drained. She stepped out barefoot onto her porch. They handed her papers, a notice of investigation and a request for a formal interview. She started talking fast, then loud, then louder. I couldn't hear her words, but her body language was frantic, hands waving, pointing at my house, shaking her head like a child caught stealing. And while she flailed, a news van parked on the street. The reporter stepped out. Linda spun around and froze like someone had stunned her with a taser. I watched her try to hustle back into her house, but the reporter called out, "Ma'am, do you want to comment on the allegation that you falsified city reports?" She slammed the door so hard the wreath fell off. Within 48 hours, the inspector she used was suspended pending investigation. City officials confirmed that the language she used in her complaints was unusually technical, suggesting insider coaching. Her employer placed her on administrative leave for ethics violations. The news segment aired, blurring my face but not hers. 3 other neighbors came forward saying she had harassed them too. And finally, poetic in a way I didn't dare hope for, her fine. Not mine. Hers. She was fined for false reports, misuse of public resources, and obstruction of municipal processes. It totaled $9,400, more than double what she'd tried to make me pay. The next time I walked outside, Sandra was watering her lawn. She just smiled at me, a real smile, and said, "Thank you." Other neighbors waved. People nodded. Someone left a note on my door that just said, "Glad someone finally said enough." I got my demotion reversed. My boss apologized. She said, "We should have believed you from the beginning." And Linda. The house has been dark for weeks. A moving truck showed up at dawn one morning. She never said goodbye. She never looked at anyone. She kept her head down and left like someone fleeing a crime scene. And maybe she was. Sometimes revenge isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's not loud. Sometimes it's just making sure the right people see the truth. When the truck pulled away, I stood on my porch and exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. And I thought, turns out the neighborhood stayed safe after all, just not in the way she imagined.